Hi, this is Coach Colette, host of the Start Within podcast, and welcome to another episode of Financial Fridays. Well, earlier this week, on Tuesday in fact, if you are living in the northern hemisphere like I am, we had the first day of fall. And so the fall or autumnal equinox is when the sun shines directly on the equator and the length of the day and the night is just about equal. I know this has been a year, 2020, not going to go there, at least for right now. But this is the transition from summer to winter. Temperatures may be starting to cool where you are, and leaves are beginning to fall off the trees. It's a time to think about both harvest. If we go back in time, that's what people were thinking about. They were thinking about the fall harvest. And it's also a time to think about abundance, right? Because if you think about harvesting, right, you are gathering in, you are bringing in all of the bounty from what you may have planted in other seasons. And it's also a time to think about how would you like to close out 2020. And I know you're probably thinking with a huge door slam, but seriously, thinking about how is it that you would like to close out this last fourth quarter of the year. It's also a great time to think about what can you do to appreciate this fall season. So there are ways that you can get out in nature, and again, here in the Northeast, it hasn't quite happened yet here in New York City, but what I do love about fall is how the leaves begin to change their colors, and you start to notice those reds and those golds and those oranges before the leaves actually fall off the trees. Thinking about how you are shifting perhaps some of your foods. For me, it's getting into oatmeal season, switching away from things like bananas or cold cereal. And it's a time to think about what are your intentions for this last quarter of the year? What would you like to manifest as we approach the end of 2020? And of course, we know it becomes pumpkin season. So whether you are thinking about getting a pumpkin to carve or enjoying some pumpkin spice in your latte or actually having pumpkin pie, it's a time to savor those flavors, both in terms of what we're eating and engaging all of our senses. So those are my thoughts for now. Get ready and listen up to today's tip from Sukhtej Singh.
Hello everyone, this is Sukhtej Singh, aka Investing of the Investing Podcast with your weekly Financial Friday tip. Are you coming from scarcity or abundance? Recently I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I realized at times I can come from a scarcity context, which means that I'm doing things out of scarcity rather than abundance. So I suggest next time you are doing certain things, are you doing certain things with the intention of creating abundance, or are you doing them with the intention of creating scarcity? That's your weekly Financial Friday tip. Have a great weekend. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Hey, it's Coach Colette with this week's Unplugged segment. Personally, it was a wild ride. I actually did 3 pitch opportunities this week for Libbie, which I'm not even sure that I have fully revealed Libbie on the podcast yet, but we are building Libbie, a mental health chatbot to support women of color to deal with all that we are dealing with in this world. And in one of the conversations, a potential investor asked me why for women of color. And I think that given the events of this week still surrounding the murder of Breonna Taylor, it seems like the answer should be obvious. And yet, when I receive these questions, it just reminds me how there are still people who don't get it. And next week, we're also hosting the Start Within, Be Free tapping circle, again, designed intentionally for women of color to come, to tap together, to release anger, to release anxiety, to release sadness, to release grief, to release frustration, all of these emotions that we often feel the need to keep inside, and they stay locked up and pent up, and then they explode in ways that we can't even imagine. Or perhaps even worse, get buried and suffocated and then germinate and generate all sorts of dis-ease in our bodies. So I am aiming to do everything that I can within my power, with the skills and the expertise and the talents that I have been blessed to receive, to help support women of color to heal and thrive. And I feel like I say it all the time, and it seems so obvious to me, and I sometimes don't get it why other people don't get it. And so in my pitch this week, the final pitch, I tried this concept of imagining because I came across this quote from Danielle Germain, who was a college student, and she talked about the fact that when she thinks of what happened to Breonna, she, one, sees herself, and two, it leaves her feeling scared all of the time. And so when I was doing my pitch, I asked people to imagine what would it feel like to be scared all of the time? What do you think it would do to your mental health and well-being, as well as your physical health and well-being, and your immunity, especially given that we are dealing with a global pandemic that is the coronavirus? And what would it be like if you felt like you couldn't share your anxiety, your fears, your frustration with anyone because you felt like you might be judged, or you might be seen as being, quote, too sensitive, or you might be seen as being too angry, or why don't you just get over it already? And it's all of those feelings and slights and microaggressions, those minor paper cuts that really cut really deep, that keeps driving me to launch the tapping circle and keep working to build Libbie, the chatbot, and bring her to the marketplace. And to continue to speak with you on this podcast and try to keep it real and try to keep it 100 and try to keep talking about it. And I don't know, we get frustrated, we get tired of talking about it, and maybe people are tired of hearing about it, but things have to change. And this is one of the ways that I can think to help make it happen. So that's all for me for now. I hope that you are well. I hope that you can find some peace. I hope that you can find some healing, and we'll speak again soon. So what is your takeaway from this week's Financial Fridays segment? What might you do differently around your money and your mindset? For more financial advice, you can check out Suki's podcast, Invest Singh, where I also share tips on his Wellness Wednesdays segment. If you enjoyed this episode and haven't already subscribed, you can do so on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen. You can also connect with me on Instagram at Coach_Colette for more inspiration on personal growth and wellness. Tune in next Friday for another episode and get ready to start within to finish strong.